Well, today, Bud, we are going to talk about how to find good tenants.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that. That
Yeah,
sounds good.
yeah, it's important, obviously. Tenants at the end of the day are you buy rental properties, tenants become your customers, and you need to have good customers in order to have good rentals. So I think again, sometimes it sounds like it's common sense, but I think a lot of people don't put enough time or effort into really qualifying tenants and getting good tenants in there. Because again, that can be a game changer on how well an asset performs, is how good your tenants are. And really, at the end of the day, how good you treat your tenants. The better you treat your tenants, the more they treat your property like a home, plus the longer that they'll stay there, take better care of it, things like that. Because at the end of the day, in rentals, turnovers is what really kills you. You know, you can buy a great asset, undervalue, put money into the rehab, do the BRRRR method like we talked about, where you buy it, you rehab it, you refinance it, go out and do it again. But again, at the end of the day, the performance of that asset after you do that is dependent on the tenant. So really qualifying the tenant is a huge part of what we do for our business.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's a huge differentiation between how the property performs, good or bad,
Yeah.
or even just mediocre. It really is the differentiator.
Yeah.
And turnover is a big piece of that. And then how they treated your property. If every person leaves that place and it's in rough shape, or they're not paying, or any of those things, significantly impacts the overall financial performance of the property. And then when you think about multifamily, it's just exponential based on how many doors you have there.
Yeah.
So if you have 90 doors, you're going to have 90 problems if you don't have good tenants in there.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter how much you, because when, for example, when we go into properties, we try to what we call tenant proof them. We'll put in commercial grade vinyl plank flooring instead of carpets, because that stuff can get really beat up and last for years and still look good. We'll do certain paints on the walls that have a high durability. So instead of having to repaint all the time, you can majority of times clean off the walls instead of having to repaint. So we do a lot of stuff to really tenant proof our properties, but still at the end of the day, majority of the time we're still, even when a tenant moves out and the place is nice and clean, you're still sticking usually between 500 to $1,000 into that unit, just doing various repairs on minor wear and tear stuff. Nothing that the tenant really did per se, but just having somebody living in a property for a year, 2 years, whatever it is, there's going to be some minor wear and tear, no matter how much you bulletproof that thing. So going in, 500 to $1,000 minimum. So again, if you have a lot of turnover, let's say you have a tenant in there, they happen to move out after 6 months for whatever reason, you have to get another tenant in. Within the course of a year, sometimes you can have a couple of turnovers on a property. It doesn't happen too often, but each time, let's just say it's $1,000, all of a sudden right there, that's $2,000 that went to turning over that property. And depending on what that property is, if it's a multifamily or single family, let's say it's single family, that $2,000 can eat up a lot of cash flow, can eat up
Yeah,
almost all your cash flow depending on the numbers on it.
absolutely. And some of those, I mean, people talk about, okay, well, why not just pull that out of security deposit, for instance? That would
Yeah,
be maybe one of those questions. Some of those things you may not be able to, based on just sort of normal wear tear things that you're
yeah,
talking
for sure.
about. Or if the damage is, even more significant, it may be larger than their security deposit.
Yeah,
And if it's a real rough tenant, good luck trying to pull that out of that individual, right?
yeah.
And then we haven't even really talked about the fact that some of those bad tenants also don't want to pay.
That's so funny. I was just gonna say that. Yeah,
That's an important piece too. If
yeah,
you're not collecting rent, it's really tough to
yeah.
sustain the property, right?
Yeah.
So,
So oftentimes, like with us, we try to do whatever we can to keep tenants in the properties, unless they're bad and they need to go, and then we'll facilitate that. But if somebody falls behind on payment, as long as they're communicating with us, we're working with them. So
sure, yeah,
by the time we get to the point of having to evict a tenant, it's not like they're just one rent payment behind. It's something usually we've been trying to work with them on for months, trying to keep them in there, trying to help them out. Just talk about this all the time. Just being good to other people, just be good to these people. So by the time, if it doesn't work out, by the time we're potentially going through that eviction process and or the tenant's moving out, that's 2 or 3 months worth of rent that we probably haven't collected. And like you said, on top of that, then any potential damages, then that's what really starts to snowball, and you can really start to hurt after a while.
Sure. So I think that kind of lays a good groundwork of why you need good tenants, how we go out and find them,
Yeah.
basically. How do we go out and do that? Maybe you want to lead us off, some basic requirements and how we
Yeah.
go out and find them.
So right now we probably source majority of our tenants from Zillow. So when you start to scale up and you get more properties, it's really important to track numbers on everything. And one of those is tenants. Where you getting leads at? How many leads is it taking to get an application? How many applications does it take to actually find a good tenant that's qualified for the property? So a lot of our tenants right now we're getting from Zillow. We do post a Facebook Marketplace a little bit, and there's a few other online websites that you can go to that will syndicate out to other sites. You post it on their website and they'll syndicate it out to 5, 10, 15 sites, whatever that is.
Sure. So finding good tenants.
Yeah. So some of the basics we look for are, and this is kind of across the board, similar with other companies, but one, you want to make sure they can afford the rent. So we look for income, their gross income to be 3 times what the rent amount is. So rent's $1,000. We're looking for them to have gross income of 3,000. No prior evictions in the last 7 years, no prior felonies in the last 7 years. We do a credit pull once in a while on tenants as well. Typically with credit scores are really, I gotta be honest, I think they're a joke, especially now that you see these TV commercials saying, hey, sign up with us and we can boost your score. Experian, I think, is doing this. Sign up with us and we can boost your score by 50 points. It's like, dude, you're paying money to get your score boosted. So what does that mean? You know, like the weight of what people put behind a credit score and like your credit worthiness, and that is supposed to mean something about you. I don't know, dude. It's kind of stupid, I think, anymore that you can just pay somebody to boost up your credit score.
It at least is a data point, right?
Yeah,
so
I was
like
gonna say
you take these different pieces,
Yeah.
and it's not the end all be all, but it is a data point, which when you're trying to analyze, hey, is this a person who I've never met before?
Yeah.
A good person to
good
be able
person,
to fill the property. Nice to have those different data points, at least to have some frame of reference.
Yeah.